A new batch of the silver bond with a minimum interest rate of 4%. And former European Central Bank chief urges the EU to adopt more coordinated industry policy to catch up with rivals. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The government today announced the launch of a new batch of the silver bond offering a minimum interest rate of 4%. Residents who turn 60 in or before 2025 and hold a Hong Kong identity card are eligible for subscription. An academic says the silver bond remains an attractive investment. Mimo Singhai reports.
The government held a press conference today to announce details of the new batch of the silver bond. The target issuance size of the bond is set at $50 million, with each unit being offered at $10,000 with a tenor of 3 years. The government may add another $5 billion to the target issuance, depending on the market response. Interest will be paid once every 6 months with a minimum interest rate of 4%. What do senior citizens think of the latest batch of the silver bond?
4% I can get better investment alternative, safer than the Hong Kong government bond. For example, U.S. Treasuries. For the risk and return, I think at least 8%. So 4% is too low.
Very attractive.
You consider buying it?
Yes.
So you have bought silver bond before?
Before, yes, that's right.
And what are the reasons?
Well, high interest rate, better interest rate.
An academic said the 4% interest rate is better than market expectations, 3.8% or below. He said while people may have different expectations, the silver bond can still be attractive.
I go for gambling. I buy stock and I sell tomorrow and I can make profit immediately. Yeah. So everybody have their different way of how to arrange their money. I think that the government offers this. It's a kind of the welfare for elderly. No any bond can offer such a kind of the guarantee.
Hong Kong identity card holders who turn 60 before January 1st, 2025 can subscribe to the silver bond between September 30th and October 14th via placing banks and designated securities brokers. Amos 9, TVB News.
More than 40 imported laborers working at the United Christian Hospital expansion site have complained about unfair treatment. They said their mainland intermediary deducted their salaries and fired them without explanation. The Development Bureau said they will not tolerate the exploitation of workers and that the workers will not lose their jobs. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The imported workers involved in the expansion works of the United Christian Hospital were earlier seen at a service center in Shenzhen's Luohu district after they returned to the mainland. Some of them said they had to pay an intermediary fee of $43,000 prior to working in Hong Kong for 2 months, only to find out that they were exploited after the hard work. Some workers said they were supposed to receive a salary of $35,000 after working for 26 days last month, 10% of it deducted for an accommodation fee. However, their mainland intermediary demanded the workers pay an additional $6,000 per month for accommodation, as well as other fees. After staging a protest at a construction site on Monday, the Hong Kong Construction Industry Employees General Union stepped in to mediate the dispute. A subcontractor assured them they will remain employed and be driven back to their temporary residence, only for the workers to be notified by the management company that they had been fired. The workers said they did not cause trouble and were only defending their rights. Meanwhile, the Development Bureau said the main contractor and subcontractors had guaranteed the workers' employment. The Bureau stressed it will safeguard labor rights in the city and prevent the exploitation of imported workers. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A boy of non-Chinese descent died after falling from a public housing block in Tung Chung. Authorities have now arrested his 32-year-old mother on suspicion of child neglect. The incident happened at around 5 p.m. yesterday at Yat Tung Estate. The police are still investigating the cause of the fall. Sources said the child's mother left their unit yesterday afternoon to pick up her elder daughter from school, leaving behind her 2 sons aged 5 and 3 at home. She returned home later only to find her 5-year-old missing and found out about the accident after she encountered police officers while searching for the boy. Former top judge Sam Ho-Fai has become the sole candidate for Macau's upcoming chief executive election. That's after receiving nominations from more than 90% of the election committee members. The 62-year-old arrived at the public administration building this morning to submit his candidacy form for the CE election. With the 383 nominations in hand, Sam became the only CE candidate for the October election. Sam said he is pleased with the number of nominations, adding he had interacted with the election committee members. Beijing today called the United States discriminatory after the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill that aims to restrict WuXi AppTec, BGI, and other biotech firms. Supporters say the law is needed to protect Americans' health and genetic data. The foreign ministry in Beijing hit back with spokesperson Mao Ning telling journalists the U.S. must stop using excuses to suppress Chinese companies. The Biosecure Act passed with a vote of 306 to 81. It aims to prohibit funding to U.S. companies that do business with biotech companies of concern, specifically naming 5 from China. Hong Kong shares of WuXi AppTec and WuXi Biologics were down more than 10% and 7% respectively in early trading. The act still has to pass the U.S. Senate before it can be signed into law. Former European Central Bank Chief Mario Draghi said the European Union needs far more coordinated industrial policy, rapid decisions, and massive investment if it wants to keep pace economically with rivals, the United States and China. This comes as Draghi released a report on how the EU should keep its green and digital economy competitive at a time of increased global friction. Daniel Rao tells us more.
At a news conference at the European Commission in Brussels, former European Central Bank Chief and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi said the European Union needs to combine its resources to build its defence industrial capacity.
So all we have to develop is a foreign economic policy here, coordinating preferential trade agreements and direct investments with resource-rich countries, building up stockpiles in selected critical areas, and creating industrial partnerships to secure the supply chain for key technologies. And we need to build our defense industrial capacity. Of course, many of these goals are not new. Member states are actually doing this on their own. But in so doing, we are really, in a sense, punching under our power. We could do much more if all these things were done as if we acted as a community.
Draghi's comments come as he released a report on the EU's competitiveness. In the opening section of the report, Draghi said the bloc needed additional investment of 750 to 800 billion euros per year, up to 5% of GDP. That's far higher even than the 1 to 2% in the Marshall Plan for rebuilding Europe after World War II. Draghi's report said growth has been slowing down for a long time in Europe, but the bloc has ignored it. It added the EU cannot ignore it any longer as world trade is slowing, China is becoming much less open to the bloc, and Brussels had lost its main supplier of cheap energy, Russia, due to the conflict in Ukraine. Draghi's report said differing levels of subsidies between countries were disturbing the single market, fragmentation limited the scale required to compete on a global level, and the EU's decision-making process was complex and sluggish. The report suggested so-called qualified majority voting rather than a need for unanimity should be extended to more areas. Daniel TV News.
Still ahead, and members of a mainland tour group fall sick in the city suspected of food poisoning. Welcome back. UK royal watchers are waiting to see when Catherine, the Princess of Wales, will resume light public duties. This after she released a video in which she says she's completed chemotherapy for unspecified cancer. Catherine adds that she's focused on staying cancer-free. David Garrett reports.
Just filming.
Hello.
Filmed with her children and husband Prince William, the Princess of Wales spoke in a slick, gorgeous video of completing her chemotherapy. The 42-year-old looks healthy as she smiles with her family. Catherine does not speak directly to the camera, but accompanied by soothing piano music, her voiceover spoke of relief.
This time has above all reminded William and me to reflect and be grateful for the simple yet important things in life, which so many of us often take for granted, of simply loving and being loved. Doing what I can to stay cancer-free is now my focus. Although I have finished chemotherapy, my path to healing and full recovery is long, and I must continue to take each day as it comes.
After the release of the video by Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace and her father-in-law King Charles called it wonderful news. The King, who has also been receiving cancer treatment, said he and the Queen will continue to offer love, thoughts and support. Kate was shown with her own father playing a game with children George, Charlotte and Louis. The Princess stated she will undertake a few more public engagements when she can. She was last seen in public in July at the men's tennis final at Wimbledon. It looks like a light return to work this year, with reports suggesting it may not be until Remembrance Sunday in November that she officially returns.
I remain with you, side by side, hand in hand. Out of darkness can come light, so let that light shine bright.
David Garrett, TVB News.
North Korean leader Kim Jongun has vowed to make his nuclear force ready for combat. On Monday, state media broadcast a speech in which Kim said he would increase the number of nuclear weapons exponentially. Fevered applause and a passionate voiceover accompanied pictures of Kim walking into a large hall and taking to the podium to deliver his message. He said his country faces a grave threat because of what he called the reckless expansion of a U.S.-led regional bloc. Kim said this is pushing him to boost military capability and make forces ready for combat, including the nuclear force. American, South Korean, and Japanese defense officials meeting in Seoul reaffirmed trilateral commitment, condemning Kim's words. More than 10 mainland tourists on a group tour to the city suffered from food poisoning, and most were taken to hospital. About a dozen ambulances were deployed to take the 8 men and 3 women to Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Some received treatment at a mobile medical vehicle. Video provided by a viewer showed some of the tourists vomiting by the roadside, while some took a rest. Police received a report shortly after midday that some members of a mainland tour group felt sick in a watch shop in To Kwa Wan. Sources say the group had dinner in a restaurant in To Kwa Wan the night before, where they ate prawns, chicken wings, and winter melons. 11 of them started feeling sick last night, but still went shopping today. And Hong Kong athletes won 4 medals in fencing and swimming at the Paris 2024 Olympics, ranking 37th overall out of all countries and regions. Looking forward, Kenneth Fok, Vice President of the Sports Federation and Olympic Committee of Hong Kong, China, said on TVB's Straight Talk program that the government should also support new sports in addition to traditional ones.
I think sports is changing a little bit because traditionally Olympics is 28 sports, but now we're seeing new sports coming up. Right, you see the first edition for breakdancing, for example, breaking, skateboarding, sports climbing. So a lot of young sports are coming up. So the Olympics mode, they are actually trying to move towards a younger scheduling to capture a younger audience. So this reflects back into our funding system. Hong Kong funding system is more kind of, you get results, and then you get more funding from the government so that you can get great trainers or get better resources. But we should allow for better flexibility, like skateboarding, right? It might, if you take years to train up the skateboarding or even other events like breaking, it may take a long time. But if we have the funding or the government support flexibility, then maybe we can quickly identify talents, quickly train up, quickly get the, the best coaches, and be able to fight for these new events.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.